Tonight, an elderly couple killed by a fierce fire at their home in Sydney's south. Holiday from hell, cruise ship fury as passengers are hit by a stomach virus. On the chopping block, 23 tests and procedures set to be cut from Medicare. League royalty gathers in Bowral as Sam Burgess marries his sweetheart. And the Windies finally show some spirit to make a fight of the third test.
This is 9 News with Georgie Gardner.
Good evening. A huge house fire has claimed the lives of an elderly couple in Sydney's south. The blaze so powerful, even firefighters were forced back. 2 men managed to escape the Penshurst home, but have lost everything they own.
A blaze so fierce, so ferocious, firefighters could see flames from streets away.
Please drop some water! Please drop some water!
This amateur footage shows neighbour Villasario Jaramillo desperately trying to douse the fire with his garden hose.
I took my hose from the balcony and started throwing water in there. And I got, help, please help, because of that. I started hosing the fire, and I can see I was not doing nothing.
In just moments, the home was ablaze. An elderly couple in the rear flat never made it out alive.
Fire brigade crews in BA endeavoured to gain access to the rear premises, but were unable to due to the level of fire involvement.
Anthony Mastroserio was sleeping in a front room, woke to smoke and alerted his flatmate.
I got him out, and then by the time, not even 10 minutes, the whole roof just caved in.
He's now being treated in hospital for smoke inhalation.
It's overwhelming. I don't know what to do. Just want to sleep, and I can't sleep because I see the fire just coming at my face, so I don't know. It's just way too much.
Investigations are now underway to determine exactly where inside the property this blaze broke out, why it spread so incredibly quickly, and whether the property was fitted with working smoke alarms. The homeowner says the property was fire safe.
How do you think this fire could have possibly started?
Well, that's a good question.
Gabrielle Boyle, 9 News.
It's promoted as a floating oasis, but passengers on a P&O cruise ship said it was the holiday from hell after a gastro outbreak on board. Let's cross now to Renee Henry at Pyrmont. And Renee, how many people were affected?
Well, Georgie, we're told at least 60 passengers were struck down with norovirus. They docked here in Sydney this morning, and we're asking serious questions about the ship's cleaning methods, given dozens of passengers on the previous trip were also affected. It's given little confidence to the hundreds of new people who've not so long ago boarded the ship and any moment now are due to set off. Many passengers say it was anything but a Pacific Eden.
It is just a floating nightmare.
Staff wore masks and sprayed disinfectant, while guests were warned to use paper towels to open doors as the gastrovirus swept the ship, confining some to their rooms for days.
So I had food poisoning and I had the virus as well, and I was locked up for 2 days.
And it didn't feel very festive when getting medical help meant forking out.
Cost me $200 to see the doctor.
Sickness wasn't the only gripe on the 12-day trip to Cairns. Some say the cabins were filthy, boarding to find a bed propped on beer cans and other people's belongings. Reports as well that some rooms flooded.
Our first experience on the ship, we went to the bathroom to go to the toilet, and the whole toilet was filled with faeces.
It's not a good look for P&O, which launched the ship only last month. 2 trips in a row now plagued by illness. The ship's poster girl, Kate Ritchie, stayed in the penthouse and seemed to escape the outbreak, but one fan reminded, keep the sanitizer going.
Extremely poor conditions on board.
P&O says stomach bugs are a fact of life in the general community, but its proactive and stringent approach to containing gastro illness is world's best practice. Many guests are demanding refunds, others understand.
We know this is a part of what happens when you go on a cruise, and the staff really did everything they could.
Renee Henry, 9 News.
Medical experts have identified more than 20 tests and procedures which they believe should no longer be covered by Medicare. Some are decades old, but the recommended cuts have left doctors divided.
Since the start of Medicare, thousands of health tests have been subsidised by the federal government.
And make sure everything's okay.
Now, 23 items from diagnostic imaging, ENT surgery, gastroenterology, obstetrics and thoracic medicine will be removed. These acute procedures were used only 52,000 times over the past year at a cost of $6.8 million to Medicare.
They're obsolete.
Professor Bruce Robinson is leading the government's task force.
This is an easy 23 items, ones that we think will not be contentious at all in the profession.
He says some medical tests are so old he hasn't heard of them, while a public survey has found 93% of people think many of the clinical procedures are out of date.
This is actually sensible work, just making sure that our MBS reflects what really goes on in the surgeries and consulting rooms across Australia.
The tests won't be taken off the Medicare schedule for another 3 months. And Professor Robinson says patients won't have to pay more because there are already new tests to replace them. One is a procedure to look for blood clots in legs,
which used to be examined by injecting dye into the feet. Now that test is best done using ultrasound.
Though not all agree. The Australian Medical Association is calling the 2-year review a cost-cutting exercise.
Just the fact that some of them are only used a few times, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't be on the schedule.
Lauren Giannoli, 9 News.
A car has flipped onto its roof in a 4-car collision at Yagoona this afternoon. A set of traffic lights was also taken out at the intersection of Bunker and Rookwood roads. One person was taken to Bankstown Hospital in a stable condition. A frightened young passenger has filmed a shocking confrontation on a train on the Bankstown line. A woman launched a furious attack on another commuter after he sat down beside her, pulling out a chisel and threatening to stab him.
It's difficult to understand how an argument over a seat escalated to this.
I'll stab you, dog. Come on, hit a woman, you dog.
A woman threatens a man with a chisel on a train from Campsie at lunchtime on Boxing Day.
Try me, dog.
A terrified mother shields her daughter as another passenger manages to disarm the woman.
Brother, he just hit me. I just told him.
The ordeal began when the woman objected to a man of Asian appearance sitting next to her. One witness says she yelled, "Do you even speak English? And go back to your own country."
I'm not touching you, I'm telling you to move. Look, there's seat there. Move, you pig.
Unsure what was going to happen, one woman filmed what transpired.
Don't touch me, dog.
A few minutes later, it was all over. A few passengers shaken, but none injured.
Reporter Kelly Fedora is at Canterbury train station tonight. And Kelly, are police investigating this incident?
They certainly are, Georgie. Police spoke to a number of the witnesses on that carriage here at Canterbury on Boxing Day, but they are yet to catch up with the man and the woman who was armed with that chisel. They hope to do that in coming hours as they piece together exactly what took place before that woman started to film on her phone. Now, charges could be laid. Sydney Trains is cooperating and they have assured passengers that there are 610 Police Transport Command officers who patrol this network. Georgie?
All right, Kelly, thank you. A man is recovering in Liverpool Hospital after he was shot in the leg in Sydney's southwest overnight. Police were called at around 11 o'clock to a service station on Bringelly Road in Rossmore, where the victim had told a worker he'd been shot. Bullets were also fired into his ute. Police are looking for 2 armed robbers after they held up a Bass Hill hotel at around 2 o'clock this morning. The men, armed with a gun and a knife, smashed their way through the front door before making off with cash from a till. The historic city of York in northern England is at the centre of a flood crisis tonight, overwhelmed by torrential downpours that have swamped neighbourhoods and inundated homes. Rivers in the region have burst their banks, with the army called in to help those caught in the chaos.
The rain stopped just long enough for the scale of this disaster to be realised. Under blue skies and a pale winter sun, a clear view of streets that are now canals, homes that are now unlivable, businesses and livelihoods that are on hold.
Cellars are full of water, yeah, they're totally full, right to the ceilings.
With the River Foss and the River Ouse converging in the centre of York, the people here are used to flooding, but not like this. This kind of devastation is the worst most people have experienced.
And we were just running around like lunatics trying to get everything out.
Right across northern England, Scotland and Wales, hundreds of homes have been evacuated, thousands of people displaced. And as water levels continue to rise, many, many more are at risk. The army has been deployed to the worst affected areas, hundreds of troops on the ground assisting with sandbagging and evacuations.
And we've got about 200 soldiers now committed to supporting what is a massive operation.
There are flood defences in these towns, but this time they simply couldn't cope with the volume of water. Prime Minister David Cameron has promised to look into the government's flood spending.
But we will do everything we can to help people in this hour of need.
As bad as the last couple of days have been, residents here are still bracing themselves for the worst, with fresh wind and rain still headed in this direction.
Amelia Ballinger is in York for us tonight. So, Amelia, how much worse is it expected to get?
Well, Georgie, the river Ouse hasn't even peaked yet. That is expected to happen in the next few hours, with river levels rising to 5.3 or 5.4 metres. And as I said, there is still more bad weather due to hit this region in the next couple of days. Prime Minister David Cameron is going to tour the affected areas today and meet with some of those families who've had a pretty harrowing festive season. But his government is still facing questions over whether more could have been done to prevent this situation.
Amelia, thank you. He's credited with being Australia's first international pop star, but Stevie Wright was much more. The powerhouse frontman of 60s pop band The Easy Beats and a successful solo performer. He leaves a lasting musical legacy after passing away overnight on the state's south coast.
From a migrant hostel in Western Sydney to the world stage, driven by this hit.
I'm getting Friday on my mind, yeah.
Stevie Wright was just 16 when the Easy Beats formed, and when they played, Easy Fever followed.
Even though he was a tiny character, he was truly larger than life. The Easy Beats came along at a time when we really needed them. We needed our own version of the Beatles and the Stones.
Friday on My Mind sold 1 million, was #1 here, top 10 across Europe, top 20 in the US, unheard of for an Aussie band.
Well, we got to tour Germany with the Stones. I got to mag with Mick.
When the Easy Beats disbanded in 1969, Stevie Wright launched himself into a solo career, topping the charts with his 11-minute epic Evie, parts 1, 2 and 3. His presence on stage, electric. Normie Rowe met Stevie in the 60s and they remained close friends.
Stevie didn't know how to go halfway with his performances. You know, he was just full of energy.
But it was an energy fueled by drugs and alcohol. It became a lifelong battle.
Well, let's be honest, I mean, you've been drinking tonight.
Yeah, I've had a drink tonight, yeah. Oh.
Do you think you've drunk too much?
No, not tonight. You look worse than I do, Dan.
But the crowds rarely minded. When Stevie Wright sang, they listened.
Evie, there seems so much to say.
More recently, the ravages of his hard life were all too evident. This at a Sydney club in 2012. Suffering liver and kidney problems, he had to be helped from his seat. A little of the adulation, though, that marked his career brought a smile to his face. Stevie Wright was 68. Eddie Meyer, 9 News.
Some of the biggest names in rugby league are tonight celebrating, with Rabbitohs star Sam Burgess tying the knot. The wedding ceremony was held a short time ago at the bride's family estate at Bowral in the Southern Highlands.
A rugby league tough man finally meeting his match. South Sydney Rabbitohs Sam Burgess is rarely outclassed, but even covered by umbrellas, he would admit there was no contest, with new wife Phoebe Hook in her Alex Perry gown. Their nuptials had all the trappings of a Christmas wedding and a guest list to rival any grand final. Sam's big burly brothers, George and Tom, were groomsmen, while South's owner and Hollywood heavyweight Russell Crowe arrived like a doting father. League royalty like Greg Inglis, Isaac Luke, John Sutton, Luke Keary and Dylan Walker all enjoyed the Burgess hospitality. So did former greats like Mark Carroll and Steve Menzies. Hook's rambling Southern Highlands family property was where the English superstar decided to wed his Bowral Belle. But a magazine deal meant security went to bizarre lengths to keep the newlywed snap safe. Not even the four-legged locals were able to sneak a peek. Sam and Phoebe met at a music festival in 2014 and were engaged in June in the Greek islands. A short courtship, but a rugby league romance fit for only a player at the top of his game.
Reporter Chris O'Keefe is in Bowral tonight where the reception's just getting underway. Chris, what's in store?
Well, Georgie, yeah, the ceremony has just wrapped up and the guests are just milling around the front of the homestead and they are about to head back to the reception marquee, which is being hosted by Phoebe's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hook. Now, it is expected they will be treated to a traditional English feast of steak and chips, plus the Nevilles, a rock band, will be entertaining them well into the night. And, Georgie, there is no word on a honeymoon date or a honeymoon location yet because this is Big Sam Burgess's comeback season for the South Sydney Rabbitohs and kick-off is in March.
Good point, Chris. Thank you very much. Time now for a look at today's weather. Here's Belinda.
Good evening, Georgie. A cool and cloudy start to the week. At 7 a.m, the city's sitting on 15 degrees, warming up to 23 by 3 p.m. That's only 2 degrees below the December average, but it was our western suburbs that felt it the most. A top of 23 in Penrith. That's 7 degrees below average. Canterbury only getting to 21 degrees. And those fresh southerlies made it feel even colder, gusting up to 52 at the airport and 50 at Bankstown. So when can we expect another burst of summer sun? I'll let you know a little later, Georgie.
All right, we will see you then. Thanks, Belinda. In the news ahead, chemicals spilled in a spectacular train derailment in the outback. Mid-air drama, one man and his dog against an eagle. Also, from painkillers to train tickets, property to pensions, the changes for Sydney-siders come January 1. And battered and broken, a skipper's painful end to the Sydney to Hobart. It could take more than a week to clean up after a freight train derailed in northwest Queensland, spilling 200,000 litres of sulphuric acid. There's a 2-kilometre exclusion zone around the crash site at Julia Creek, with all 26 carriages derailed. 3 men who were on board at the time were treated for minor injuries. A pilot has been locked in a life-or-death battle after an eagle smashed through the windscreen of his light plane. Michael Greenwood was making his way across central New South Wales when the bird struck, triggering a sky-high emergency to get himself and his dog safely down to earth.
Pilot, pooch and plane. This is Michael Greenwood at his happiest. But packing his bags today, his eye and iPad show how close it all came to ending.
And it was the horrendous noise of no windscreen, an eagle in the cockpit. I'm totally blind, covered in blood.
The inside of his Glass Air Sportsman showing how 30 years of smooth flying was replaced by 30 minutes of panic.
So I'm flying blindfolded and wrestling with the plane, but I can't see instruments, I can't hear anything. My headsets have been blasted off in pieces.
The 56-year-old had just left Mudgee in New South Wales Central West when the eagle struck. 3 times he called Mayday through a badly damaged headset.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear. I had headset. I had no windscreen smashed with a bird.
With limited visibility, he turned for Bathurst. His last concern, 10-year-old collie Billy sitting in the back.
I've come in and not really seeing the runway, but doing it more in my mind's eye than anything else.
Landing with large cuts on his face and large feathers in his cockpit.
And like, yeah, I'm alive. I got down. I shut everything down, fuel quickly, and the first thing I did was grab my phone and photo behind me to see my dog, and I'll show you the photo.
He did, and it's one to savour.
Mike will now play passenger, but he's vowing to get back into the cockpit after he's reunited with his most precious cargo.
He's my canine co-pilot and he's awesome.
Charles Croucher, 9 News.
Well, it's not just the boats which have been damaged in this year's gruelling Sydney to Hobart. Sailors have also taken a beating. Yvonne Sampson joins us now, and the list of retired yachts continues to grow, Yvonne.
It does, Georgie. At last count, 31 of the 108 boats that begun the race have been forced to turn back. And there were dramatic scenes at Rushcutters Bay this afternoon, with the skipper of Victoire rushed to hospital with injuries he suffered when the boat fell from the top of towering swell.
No yachts have made it to Hobart yet, but there's been a steady stream arriving back into Sydney. On board 2013 handicap winner Victoire, an unfolding medical emergency. Owner and skipper Daryl Hodgkinson stretchered from the yacht and loaded into a waiting ambulance with a suspected punctured lung and broken ribs.
All accidents, I always say, happen in the kitchen, and funnily enough, that's where he was. And he was standing on one side of the boat, we dropped off a wave, and unfortunately fell across the boat and hit his back on basically a heavy table.
Following his fall, the crew were forced to make the difficult decision to turn around, ending their skipper's dream of adding another trophy to the Tattersalls Cup he won 2 years ago.
A stubborn fella wanted to stay on, so it wasn't until he did the damage at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon that we finally convinced him that it was probably more safe to return home.
Docking next door, another disappointed crew on board Triton.
It was like sailing into a black hole.
Close to 30% of the Sydney to Hobart fleet has now retired, the majority battered by gale force winds.
We did have some problems with the mainsail, but one of the biggest concerns was that some of the lifelines, the stanchions had let go, and that's meant to keep the crew in.
A few sick crew members on the back there were.
Maybe just a couple, but everyone pulled through.
Danica Mason, 9 News.
Now to Hobart, where Jade Vincent is waiting for the leaders to arrive. Jade, it's become a battle between the two American boats, Comanche and Rambler 88. Who's in the lead?
Yvonne, the Comanche crew are getting ready to celebrate already. They radioed in a short time ago to say they've rounded the Tasman Island. They've got about 35 nautical miles to go and are expecting to arrive here at Constitution Dock by 9 o'clock tonight. As you say, fellow American Rambler is struggling to pick up speed at the moment, about 32 nautical miles behind. The Aussie Ragamuffin placing third at the moment. We've got to keep in mind that both Rambler and Comanche suffered severe damage on that first disastrous night, but they have battled on. They've still got a hard slog ahead as they make their way up the Derwent River. We hear that the winds have picked up slightly, which is helping though. But if all goes as expected and Comanche claims her first line honours victory, well, what a win it will be and what huge celebrations. This could have gone so badly. What a comeback after they were almost forced to retire on that first night. So a little while to go, Yvonne, but we'll just have to wait and see. Looking good for now though.
Sit tight. It's going to be a wonderful night. Thank you so much, Jade. I'll be back with more, including at last the Windies put up a fight. All the highlights from day 3 of the Melbourne Test, and we'll see how Jared Hayne fared as he started for the first time as the 49ers running back. All that coming up very shortly. Georgie?
See you soon. Thanks, Bonnie. In the news ahead, fiery scenes in Bellevue Hill. Why were luxury cars set alight? The Randwick trees at the centre of a row over Sydney's light rail. Also incredible images from a chain of monster tornadoes. And front row at a discount. How to get a harbourside home for the New Year's Eve fireworks. Police are investigating a suspected arson attack which destroyed 4 cars at Bellevue Hill in Sydney's east. A Mercedes 4-wheel drive was set alight and neighbours say it's not the first time the vehicle's been targeted.
Cars ablaze and flames leaping into the air. An early morning fireball on leafy Birriga Road. Neighbours were woken by explosions and the sound of breaking glass. One by one, vehicles were engulfed in flames.
I thought it was fireworks because they seemed to just keep sort of going. It was like doosh, 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 doosh.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific because you don't know how far it was spreading, and with it going down a steep street, the oil from the cars and the petrol was spreading to other cars.
Thankfully, firefighters were able to stop the flames spreading further, but 4 vehicles couldn't be saved. Shazer Kames' Honda was parked beside them.
Seeing the other cars, seems I'm the lucky one here.
Detectives are investigating if this Mercedes 4-wheel drive was singled out. But neighbours say it's not the first time police have been called to this property, and only a few months ago this same vehicle was targeted.
There's been windows smashed, not like this. There have been several incidents.
Amanda Arbib lives at the home and has previously been charged with drug possession. Her family owns the Mercedes that was believed to have been targeted.
At the moment they're victims of a fire, and we'll be investigating all lines of inquiry.
The person responsible is yet to be charged. Cassandra Wood, 9 News.
Residents have slammed light rail construction at Randwick as unnecessary, appealing to the state government to rethink tearing down heritage trees to make way for the project.
We want light rail, but we also want our trees. We want our environment.
The removal of dozens of trees on Allison Road began today. The state government says they will be replaced. 11 people are dead after monster tornadoes swept through Dallas, Texas, ripping apart homes and obliterating neighbourhoods. One twister was the most powerful to hit the area in 20 years.
From the air, the damage is simply overwhelming. House after house torn apart by the terrifying tornado. This church in the twister's path of destruction.
There it is. Oh, no.
The storm hit under the cover of darkness.
Oh, it's massive. Oh, my gosh, it's big.
Lightning revealed its massive size. It swept through north of Dallas, battering the city of Garland. Nearby Rowlett took a direct hit.
I looked out my window and saw the funnel, around my house, and then I just dove into the hallway.
It sounded like a freight train coming through.
The roof of this woman's house was ripped off.
And I was just hearing my kids screaming at me like, Mom, you okay?
And next thing you know, lights went out, then the ceiling come off the house. Ceiling come off the house. And then it was gone. I mean, just like that.
Scores of people were taken to hospital. 600 buildings were damaged.
And so these are significant, powerful tornadoes that were capable of inflicting massive damage.
The Texas governor fears the death toll could rise.
We pray and support those who have lost a family member.
And as the cleanup continues, there's the chance of more tornadoes and freezing conditions on the way. In the United States, Simon Boda, 9 News.
There's been a major triumph in the war against Islamic State, with US-trained forces reclaiming a key city in Iraq. Militants have now abandoned their last stronghold in Ramadi. It's the biggest victory for the Iraqi military since its troops left the city in May, and it's expected to significantly weaken the terror group's grip on the region. Once home to ancient landmarks and 300,000 people, this suburb in the Syrian city of Damascus is now a place of ruin, a drone revealing the devastating toll violent clashes have had on the region. Homes and buildings have been blown to pieces in the conflict between rebels, Islamic State militants and Bashar al-Assad's forces. Police in Chicago have been accused of racial bias and heavy-handedness after shooting dead a black teenager and a mother of 5. Officers were called to a domestic disturbance involving the 19-year-old man, shooting him as he became aggressive. 55-year-old Betty Jones was caught in the crossfire. Police have apologised for the deaths. There are now 3 sleeps until Sydney lights up for its New Year's Eve spectacular, but the dazzling views of the harbour come with a price tag to match. Some hotels and Airbnb hosts charging up to 10 times the usual rate.
They're the $1 million views without the price tags to match. And if you're lucky enough to have a glimpse of water, bridge or Sydney's famous white sails, you could turn your good fortune into cold hard cash this New Year's Eve.
It's fair to say we had quite a lot of interest for the apartment, and we had quite a few people trying to outbid each other.
Ben Nolan is renting out a room at Potts Point. It has incredible views of the city skyscape and is a prime vantage point for watching the fireworks.
I know how much this apartment is worth, so the people that are coming here are getting great value for a couple of nights each time.
Being an online marketplace, Airbnb's pricing depends on supply and demand, and there's no greater demand than the night Sydney lights up for the world. Some Airbnb hosts are charging 10 times the usual rate, particularly if they have a view.
From Watson's Bay to Potts Point to Darlinghurst, over on the north side in Kirribilli and Mossman, just some great places available on Airbnb.
Many hotels have also jacked up the price of their rooms over the holiday season. And if you're after an extra wow factor and money is no object, luxury harbour homes are still available, like this property at Cremorne Point, where you can almost reach out and touch the water. At $1,000 a night, it might be more affordable than you think, given it sleeps 8.
This property is probably 10 times the size of a hotel room, but has 4 bedrooms and is really great value for a number of couples to stay together.
And if you're still stuck for somewhere for New Year's Eve, there are hundreds of vantage points scattered across the harbour. The best thing about these views, They're absolutely free. Laura Tunstall, 9 News.
Yvonne is up next with all the day's sport. Vonnie.
Georgie, coming up, the West Indies finally give Australia a run for their money. All the Day 3 highlights in a moment. The Maroons' second choice finally named as Queensland coach. And Jared Hayne returns for the 49ers. Did he do enough to keep his place?
Cloudy skies over Sydney today. Will they clear in time for the fireworks on New Year's Eve? I'll have the latest forecast shortly.
Suzuki's 2015 plate clearance is on, and there's huge savings across the range. Get Swift GL manual from just $14,990 drive away, save $1,000, or upgrade to auto from $16,490 drive away. New Celerio, the extra large small car, from just $12,990 drive away. And all new Vitara is here with multimedia sat-nav reversing camera and 17-inch alloy wheels from $22,990 drive away. Suzuki's 2015 plate clearance at your Suzuki dealer now.
For the first time in the series, the West Indies put up a fight today, and while it's unlikely to save them from defeat, at least it's added some spice to the Boxing Day test. Darren Bravo top scored as the Windies reached 271 in their first innings. At stumps, Australia 3 for 179 in their second dig, a lead of 459 runs.
Day 3, Carlos Brathwaite had all the accessories.
Got a watch on.
And he wasn't wasting any time.
Oh, welcome.
Struck on the helmet by a Pattinson bouncer, the debutant was rattled.
He got him! Knocked him over!
But Brathwaite was recalled after a front foot review, ensuring his eventful innings continued.
Just abandoned the equipment.
He'd soon reach 50 before Pattinson finally thought he had his man caught on the boundary, only for another no-ball call.
Oh, this is a massive one.
It left Nathan Lyon to make the breakthrough on lunch.
Oh, there's a... Oh, he's taken it! That's a ripper!
Bravo also carved out a determined half-century as Pattinson took care of Kemar Roach.
That's very close. So close that it's out.
Thankfully, this one was legal. The Windies 8 for 215, but not done with just yet.
Bang, that's a big one.
While Lyon and Pattinson finished with 4 wickets apiece, that late hitting meant Australia would bat again.
Good bowling. Really good bowling. Off cutter, backed up by outswinger.
Things got physical on more than one occasion. Warner not backing away from a verbal stoush either, but he was soon silenced.
Got him! Oh! What a dismissal.
This a glimpse of the team fans had once loved, albeit even their celebrations needed work.
That's calypso. That's chaos.
Smith's batting was also unconventional.
Oh, what about that?
His various tennis shots prompting a rare blemish from Khawaja.
He's hit it and he's out.
But while he was dismissed before stumps, it mattered little. Australia in complete control. Ayrton Woolley, 9 News.
A double blow for the Sydney Sixers in the Big Bash, with captain Moses Enriques re-injuring his calf in their 5-wicket loss to the Melbourne Stars at the SCG. It wasn't the only distraction for the home side. A streaker running onto the pitch as they set the Stars 140 for victory. Glenn Maxwell then put on a show for the crowd of almost 30,000, posting a half-century as the Stars secured victory with 8 balls to spare. To rugby league, a new Maroons coach, Kevin Walters, insists he is the right man to replace Mal Meninga, despite the role originally being offered to Cowboys coach Paul Green.
What's important is the QRL got it right in the end. They have got their right man for the job. Got no doubt about that. It just took a few little turns and a few roundabouts.
Walters will take on the job full-time after signing a 3-year deal. 10 days after he was told he needed to learn the game, a defiant Jared Hayne made his first NFL start. The running back's return was solid but couldn't prevent the 49ers from a 15-point loss to Detroit.
After 2 months of practice and praying, Jared Hayne was back in the NFL.
That right here and right now, and of course they've been talking about this guy ever since he left Australia, and that's Jared Hayne.
This is what it is, you know. I just always remain ready and remain focused, and obviously get the call up, it was great.
Desperate to atone for his active roster exile, Hayne had 5 receptions and 9 carries for a combined 47 yards at running back, including an 11-yard effort to set up the 49ers' first touchdown.
Young man who came over, the best player in all of Australia playing rugby, decided to come over and play here in the United States a game of American football.
The stats tell a story of a career-best outing, but there is caution to reigniting the Hayne hype.
I don't want to say a whole lot right now. I mean, I know that we were
trying to call the game, help them out. There were some plays there that I noticed that were really good, and I noticed there's a few there that we've got to get better at.
For me to be able to get that experience, it's invaluable because, but obviously so much to catch up on.
Haynes' fan club hasn't disappeared, neither has his confidence.
Obviously confidence in my own ability is something that I have a lot of, and, to be able to go out there and perform, the way I did today, I think it shows.
He did a great job. Like I said, he came in, stepped up against a good defensive front and held his own. So there's things there that we can build on.
Haynes' performance should ensure he plays in the 49ers' final game of the season against St Louis next weekend. And billionaire Jim Clark is so excited with the performance of his yacht Comanche in the Sydney to Hobart, he decided to do a flyby in his private jet as it made its way south. It's a great shot. We're not sure what air traffic control would think of the stunt, though. Comanche is expected to take line honours in Hobart a little later this evening. Boys in their toys, Georgie.
There'll be
plenty of champagne.
I'm sure. Thanks.
Very good.
Thanks, Bonnie. Stay with us. Still ahead, preparing for the new year, the everyday items that will cost more by the end of the week. When knighthoods make waves, the Australian who's raised hackles in Britain. Plus, Fast and Furious, the unstoppable Star Wars movie, sets an eye-watering record. New pictures have just come into our newsroom of Rabbitohs star Sam Burgess' wedding at Bowral in the Southern Highlands. The English NRL player married entertainment writer Phoebe Hook a short time ago, and the reception is now underway at her family's estate. The bride wore an Alex Perry gown, while the groom opted for an Armani suit, as did his groomsmen, his brothers Luke, Tom and George. In 4 days, it'll be a brand new year, but the date won't be the only thing to change come January 1. 2016 is going to cost us more, with a raft of adjustments to things such as tolls, welfare payments and medication.
If 2015 was the year of the real estate boom, 2016 could be the year it all busts.
Every year, the property prices has been increasing, and you thought you saved enough home deposit, but it's becoming more and more expensive.
And for first home buyers like Fairfield accountant Richard Mahika, any savings made as prices ease could be offset by changes to government grants. The New South Wales First Home Buyers New Home Grant to drop from $15,000 to $10,000.
There's not a lot of option for us first home buyers to save home deposit aside from spending less.
A new year means new rules. Around 4,000 families with dependent children receiving government support like youth allowance will be subject to new income tests. And those parents who haven't immunised their children will be stripped of welfare and childcare payments.
Immunisation rates below 95% for diseases like whooping cough, chicken pox, measles are not good enough, and we've dropped below that 95% marker.
Getting around Sydney, well, from January 1, tolls on all roads will rise with inflation, while more paper tickets on the public transport network will be abolished to encourage everyone to get an Opal card, including the pensioner excursion tickets, Family Fun Day Sunday and some train, bus and ferry passes. It means an adjustment for 80-year-old Collaroy Plateau pensioner Nan Bosler.
I'm a bit like most seniors. I'm not too keen on change, particularly when what I'm doing satisfies me and is meeting my needs.
She'll also be affected by changes to medication. 17 common prescription drugs like Panadol Osteo and Panamax will only be available over the counter at pharmacies. It's more convenient, but for some pensioners, an extra expense if they're entitled to subsidies.
I'm quite happy with it. I think it sounds like sensible housekeeping.
Good news for tertiary students. Fees will freeze for most vocational education and training courses from January 1. But there'll be big changes to super. Some 300,000 retired Australians will lose some or all of their age pension entitlements because of new asset tests. It'll be an incentive to chase up lost super. If you don't, the federal government will be able to raid more after lifting the threshold on untouched accounts from $2,000 to $4,000. Davina Smith, 9 News.
He's known in political circles as the Wizard of Oz for his election-winning expertise. And soon, Australian Linton Crosby will be able to add Knight to his title. The campaign mastermind is tipped to receive a knighthood from the Queen in the New Year's honour list. It's reportedly a reward from British Prime Minister David Cameron, who was re-elected in May with Mr Crosby's guidance. The Force is strong with this one. Star Wars The Force Awakens has catapulted itself into the history books, becoming the fastest movie ever to make $1 billion. It accomplished the feat in just 12 days, outshining the previous record holder, Jurassic World, which did it in 13 days. Coming up, Sydney petrol prices and finance, plus Belinda with the weather.
Thanks, Georgie. Right now it's 21 degrees in the city and 20 in our west, but thanks to that wind chill, feels about 3 degrees cooler. Not as windy tomorrow, so the weather will start to warm up again. A full forecast is next.
It's the time of the year for giving, and actress Isla Fisher and her husband, comedian Sacha Baron Cohen, have certainly done that. The celebrity couple donating more than $1 million to a Christmas charity appeal to help Syrian refugee children. To finance and markets are, of course, shut today for the public holiday. Our dollar is buying 72 US cents and around 87.5 Japanese yen. The average petrol price for unleaded is $1.09 a litre. For E10, it's sitting around $1.07. Now here's Belinda.
Thanks, Georgie. Hello again. Another cool summer's day for Sydney, a top of 23 degrees in the city and an early shower picking up 2 millimetres at around 7 a.m. So not much rain in them, but a sky full of clouds today. And if you took the time to look up, some impressive formations. Some of you using the hashtag 9weather and posting your photos on Instagram. These ones were taken over the weekend, a spectacular view from the Manly Ferry. It was a cloudy day in our west as well, with daytime temperatures up to 7 degrees below the December average, a top of 22 degrees in Blacktown. On to tomorrow, and if we take a look at the charts, this high pressure system will bring fine weather to the south of our country, while in the north, more flooding rain due to this monsoon low and trough. So more stormy weather for Darwin and Cairns, hot and sunny in Canberra with a top of 30, and another hot spell for Adelaide, soaring to 35 degrees. In Melbourne, another sunny day at the cricket and a little warmer for day 4 at the MCG, hitting a top of 25 degrees in the afternoon. The sun will also be shining brightly over most of New South Wales, apart from a shower or two around Coffs Harbour, and still windy along the coast with a strong wind warning for beaches from Coffs to Byron Bay. In Sydney, the winds will be lighter tomorrow, so some clouds hanging around in the morning, but as the day goes on, we will see more sunshine and it will be slightly warmer, the city heading for a top of 24 degrees. A bigger jump in temperatures in our west, back up to 27 degrees in Penrith, but you might need an extra blanket tonight, dropping right down to 12 degrees in Campbelltown. Looking at the next 7 days, mostly sunny and 25 on Wednesday. The fine weather sticking around for most of the week, with tops of around 26 degrees, the new year getting off to a sunny start on Friday. And a blast of sunshine for our western suburbs as well. Blue skies and 29 on Wednesday, warming up to 31 degrees on the first day of the new year, staying dry until Sunday before another cool change arrives. And finally, a quick look at what's in store for our New Year's Eve celebrations, and it's still looking good. We should get a clear view of the fireworks, just a few clouds about, and now the latest forecast, 0 chance of any rain, Georgie, so we should be able to leave our brollies at home.
Excellent news. Thank you for that, Belinda. And that is 9 News for this Monday. Cameron Williams is up next with the current affair. I'm Georgie Gardner. Thanks for being with us. Enjoy your evening. Good night.